Review 2 packet is on solving equations. Remember, in order to solve the equation, we're technically trying to isolate the variable, which means to get it by itself. So we want to move all the variables to one side and the numbers to the other. In order to do that, we use the inverse or opposite operation, and you want your equation to stay balanced. What we do to one side, we must do to the other. Remember, these are all the different properties when we're solving equations. So simplify, combine like terms. It just means you're putting things together that are on each side. Distributive property is where we multiply through the parentheses. Addition properties where we add to both sides. Subtractions when we subtract from both sides. Multiplication is where we multiply on both sides, and division is where we divide on both sides. So if we look at number 1, it says to solve for the given variable. Well, my variable is n. If I'm trying to get n alone, right here is 32 times n. The opposite of multiplication is division, so I'm going to divide both sides by 32. So here we'll cancel. I'll be left with n there. Be careful, don't get tricked by the division. It really says 4 divided by 32, hit enter, and we get 0.125 as an answer. So that's your final answer. Obviously on the exam you can check. I'm not going to require you guys to check, but you can check them. If we look at number 3, it says x plus 5 equals 13. The opposite of adding 5 to both sides is subtracting 5 from both sides. So we subtract 5 from both sides of the equation. When I subtract 5, the 5's here cancel. We get x equals, and 13 minus 5 is 8. The x is alone, so that's your final answer. Number 5 says w minus 12 equals 20. The opposite of subtracting 12, we need to add 12 to both sides of the equation. Here it cancels, my w is by itself. 20 plus 12 gives me 32, and that's my final answer. Number 7 is one that tricks people sometimes. Number 7, if you read it to yourself, you know what it says, but kids don't usually read it to themselves. It says x divided by negative 5. Well, the opposite of dividing is multiplying, so I'm going to multiply both sides by negative 5 to get the negative 5 to go away. So I'm left with x equals negative 9 times negative 5 is a positive 45. Those were all one-step equations. They only took one step to solve them. Now we're going to look at some 2 or more step equations. So if we look at number 9, it says 15 equals 16d minus 1. Remember, you want to do PEMDAS backwards when we're solving an equation. So we want to do our adding or subtracting first, then our multiplying and dividing. So if I add 1 to both sides of the equation, the 1's here cancel. I get 16 equals 16d. I want to get the d by itself still, so I divide both sides by 16. 16 divided by 16 is 1, so that is my answer. Number 11. Again, we do the addition or subtraction first. We're trying to get that c by itself, so I want to add 1 to both sides. I get 4c divided by 9 equals 20. You want to undo the division before the multiplication up here because you can't undo this when it's part of that fraction. So the opposite of dividing by 9 is multiplying both sides by 9. So I'm left with 4c. 20 times 9 is 180. Obviously, any operations you need to, you can use your calculator. And if I have 4 times c, the opposite of multiplying by 4 is dividing by 4, so I get c equals, and when you do 180 divided by 4, you get 45. Couple more to go on this one. Number 13. Okay, these are a little different because notice I'm solving for x, but I have x's on both sides, so I need to get them to one side. So you want to move them to the other side. I don't want to move the 7x because it's already alone, so I'm going to subtract the 2x from both sides of the equation. When I do that, 7x minus 2x is 5x equals 10. And then 5 is times x. The opposite of multiplying by 5 is dividing by 5. 10 divided by 5 is 2. Number 15 again has x's on both sides of my equation. It doesn't matter which one you move because they both have stuff with them. I like my variables on this side, so I'm going to add 9x to both sides of my equation. That cancels. Be careful, -7 plus 9. So it's -7 plus 9 equals, and we get a 2. So this is 2x minus 2 equals 24. Add 2 to both sides of the equation. I get 2x equals 26. Divide both sides of the equation by 2. And I get x equals 13. One last one for today. Before I actually can move things over in this one, I have like terms on one of my sides. So 12x minus 5, there's nothing I can do, but I have 8x minus a 1x here. These are actually like terms like we looked at in the last packet. So I'm going to bring my 12x minus 5 down. 8x minus 1x gives me 7x, and then bring down my plus 50. Now I can get my x's to one side of my equation. So I'm going to subtract 7x to both sides. These cancel. 12 minus 7 is 5x minus 5 equals 50. Again, do your addition or subtraction first. So those cancel. I get 5x equals 55. Opposite of multiplying by 5 is dividing by 5, and we get x equals 11. Your job now for homework tonight is to do 2 through 18.